Have you ever felt like maybe the wind had been taken out of your sails? I think we've all probably been there, and we probably all can think of something, even right now, that this sentiment applies to. What makes us feel that we've stalled out, or that maybe some of the attention and energy we'd been devoting to something just sort of went by the wayside? Today's reading looks at that situation, maybe a contributing factor to it, as well as what we can do, a challenge we'll face, and a potential outcome. So let's get started. If this involved a creative endeavor, which doesn't necessarily mean arts and crafts, it can mean, building something, it can mean remodeling something, it can mean a new hobby, it can mean that book, that novel, that comic, that film, whatever we were going to do, that new business, that new practice, whatever. You'll notice that the contributing factor, 10 of Wands, maybe we thought that we were already on our way. Maybe we were quick to decide that we had already gotten where we were going, or it was a foregone conclusion. Absolutely nothing wrong with enthusiasm. We need that to pursue things to their completion. But don't confuse enthusiasm with presumption. Just because we feel enthused about it, and we have probably put in a great deal of work, doesn't mean that we've yet come to the end of the cycle. When we realize that, sometimes we get a little bummed out. We get to feeling that maybe it just wasn't supposed to happen, or maybe we just don't have time for it after all, and we begin to resign ourselves to the norm. So the first thing I would suggest to combat that, probably not the most cheerful card, death. For those of you watching who don't know this, death does not mean that you'll die right away. You will die, but hopefully quite a ways down the road. Right now, death means a transformation, a growth period coming up. Now, we might think, well, what can I do to promote that? Well, think of it like gardening, growing something. You water things, you pull out weeds, you do things to make room for the growth and to promote it. And so what can we do? Well, first of all, I guarantee some things have gotten in the way, have started taking up time that you might otherwise devote to that project. So take a look and determine how necessary those actually have been, and whether you can do without them. What can you weed out of the way of your developing progress? Furthermore, look up online SMART goals. SMART, an acronym. Basically, a more refined baby steps process that allows you to break up your goals in projects into smaller, more manageable, more tasks. They all contribute to the end result. and you can keep track of them better instead of having one overarching, life-changing goal where if you fail at some part or need to push some part of it back, you've failed. Break it up into SMART goals. Check those out. You may find them very helpful in this regard. Now, an obstacle, because we can't just expect things to go the way we want them to, else we wouldn't have this particular reading. The Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles has gotten comfy. She's gotten a little cozy in her comfort zone. She has had some success and thinks maybe she was asking for too much. Maybe she shouldn't get ambitious. She looks to the past, maybe seeing failures of the past. She looks at what she already has, what she's already done and obtained, and thinks, maybe I should just consider that good enough. She doesn't want to move forward. Whether she may disguise that in our minds as sort of a bitter protective measure. Things didn't go the right way, so I better protect myself from a little more disappointment and just stop now before I lose more, before I get more cynical, more disappointed. Better just take what I've got and make the best of it. But somewhere deep down, it goes beyond that. She just doesn't want to move. Maybe self-protection stands as a defense mechanism for having to do things. I don't want to call anybody lazy. That hasn't been the point. But sometimes we have a streak, don't we? So get her up and moving. Get her up and moving. Remind yourself not of times when things have failed, but when they've succeeded. It may feel kind of difficult. We may not have one of those instances come up in our minds right away. We may have to dig a little bit. But we've got them. You've been through some stuff and you've gotten here. Every one of us watching today has a 100% survival rate up until right now. We don't know how long that'll last, but nobody who's been watching today has had a life free of challenges and obstacles and downright problems. And you've gotten through them. Probably several of them. Dwell on those. Dwell on the transformations you've already been through to get you past this obstacle, this roadblock, onto the moon, where you've balanced some things now. We've got a little balance there, and we've got some intuition on our side. Through this process, you'll have learned some things. You've already learned some things, but you'll have learned more. And you'll get a better feel for what works for you, what works for your process. Maybe the SMART goals will have become integrated into your process. Maybe some other transformative exercise will have been integrated into your process. You'll learn to listen to yourself. You probably already had some idea when we brought this up and all along of what you've needed to do. Let that come to the surface. Let that break through the barrier and illuminate your way. Don't let this stop you. Sweep right through that. If you got to cut through some things, don't worry about it. You've done it before, you can do it again. It hurts sometimes, it gets a little painful, but necessary if you want to advance and progress. So, I'll let you get to that. Again, look up the SMART goals. I think I've said all that the cards wanted to say. So feel free, of course, to leave your comments and suggestions, thoughts, feelings, etc. Subscribe, please. You can get some regular updates. This doesn't get updated as often as I'd like quite yet, so make sure to subscribe. And follow me on the Instagram and Facebook pages. Those get updated several times a day, and you'll probably find some things there maybe that'll help you with what we've discussed, and certainly I hope you'll find them enjoyable. So for now, do a little self-reflection, do a little planning, break up those goals into more manageable parts, and until next time, folks, keep transforming.